Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Militarized Equipment Ad Hoc. It's October 3rd, 2022 at approximately 6:07 p.m. Sorry about the late start. We are going to take up, well, first, maybe we could hear an update about breaching. I know that we don't have the policies. Maybe we could get an ETA. And then we're going to take up mobile command, then LRAD, hear back about the demonstration on Friday, probably finish up with robots and figure out some scheduling. Let's see, why don't we start with breaching? Lieutenant Febble, anyone else from the department? What are we looking at?
So right now, sir, we're working with Sergeant Cardona on an inventory for breaching. He's assigned to a 30-day operation, so we're seeing some delays there, but we'll keep you updated as soon as we get that inventory sheet.
And that is the inventory sheet, so part of the impact policy. What about the actual policy itself?
The actual policy is, for the most part, drafted out. Lieutenant Thomason saw a couple of revisions that needed to be made. We're running it through a department SME, so we're 90% of the way there.
Okay. That strikes me that it probably won't be done by Wednesday. And even if we did try to meet on Wednesday, we would probably get it without very much time to review. I also think we have sufficient time to get through the other three policies today. We had postponed the decision on whether or not to come back on this Wednesday to today. I'm proposing that we do not meet on Wednesday and try to get as much done today. Partially because we do have to get the agenda items submitted by Wednesday anyways. And so any revisions on Wednesday night would be a little bit problematic getting to the commission. Thoughts?
Sounds good to me.
Same.
Sorry, what day is the meeting that this is getting submitted for?
It would be the 13th.
Okay, and that's police commission. Cool, thanks.
Okay, Kent, we are not meeting on Wednesday. Our next meeting will be October 10th. We'll figure out where we are at, and likely on October 10th, I would also propose we go back to every other week to get the rest done, whatever is left. But we'll take that up Monday. All right. Shall we turn to mobile command?
Okay, good evening. So I'm Lieutenant Sean Fleming. So I have the mobile command vehicle policy and the impact report. Do you guys want me to share my screen of the policy? I believe you guys already all have it, I believe.
Yeah, and we went through it and asked, I think it was Lieutenant Thomason and Lieutenant Dazakiros a bunch of questions about it on last Monday. So they did the hard work to go through the policy and answer our questions. So
There's
maybe
some great team players right there.
you should be able to share. We know if you're not.
Give me 1 second. Okay, are you guys seeing it?
We are. Let me just start, maybe get us a little bit more directive about this. Between last Monday and Monday, did you hear of or make any changes to this policy?
No.
Okay. And so I know that we have now had a little bit more time to sit with this policy. If we did go through it last week, I'm wondering if there is anything in particular about this policy that you want to highlight for us, since we did go through it last week.
The only thing, the one significant thing that did happen, I think within the last, I don't know, maybe 24 to 48 hours, that we do have 2 more of the community resource vehicles of the vehicle that we had at the Coliseum on Friday, but they're still in the building. They're still doing some radio work, some decal work, and some other work to the vehicle. So they're at the courtyard. So we will have 3 of the community resource vehicles for the City of Oakland, the Oakland Police Department. So that's one significant thing that occurred over the last maybe 48 hours, could be 72 hours. I don't know when it exactly arrived at our courtyard.
I appreciate that. Ms. Tu?
Thanks. Last time we talked about what the mobile command vehicle looks like. It kind of looks like a very white RV with I don't know, mobile desk units inside. What does the community resource vehicle look like? Is it similar or different?
No, it's similar. It's all based on a it's like a mobile RV. It's a mobile home frame. It's just some different, you know, the decals obviously different, the colors based in white. You know, you got the police lights on top. You got the police insignias on both sides and around the vehicle. But it's based on, like, say, an RV type frame. Pretty common type frame.
Got it. Thanks. And Commissioner Shea, just to give you, and is it Lieutenant Fleming?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thanks. And to give you and Lieutenant Fleming a heads up, I have some more questions after reading through the through both the impact report and the policy. But we can let Lieutenant Fleming give us the presentation first.
Any highlights or lowlights of this particular policy, Lieutenant Fleming?
You know, just the one, the training portion. You know, like for the bigger vehicle, the one bigger, older and bigger vehicle that we have. Right now we only have one officer that's trained with the Class B license. We're working through the Special Operations Division to get at least, I believe I see in the future at least 2 or 3 more trained up that can actually drive that vehicle and, you know, take it out in the field when needed. But that's been a constant kind of up and down process throughout the years with that vehicle due to the licensing requirements and the training that's needed for that vehicle. Let's see here. I think after talking with Joe and Jeff, I think we kind of like alliterated the authorized uses, the prohibited uses of the vehicle, the deployment. We have a storage location at our courtyard out there in East Oakland. We have a pretty good checkout process for the keys. We have an electronic key distribution and tracking system to track who takes the keys out. We also have the tracking with the where every time someone uses, they have to report it, and it's being tracked on the military notification spreadsheet that we have. Through the policy, we talk about the setup and on-scene procedures. That's just getting the vehicle safely out to the location. We talk about reporting of damage to the vehicle. Nothing different than you would do with a normal police car that's out there in the field. My section, the traffic operations section, commander or the designee or me or whoever else is in this position will be responsible for the maintenance and inspection of the vehicle. Then let's see here. Do you see the impact report also on here? Did that come up, or did I need to change my screen again or something? Or
You see it?
you see it? Okay. And then I'll just move on over to the impact report. What probably will change, obviously, is the portion with the we will have 3 of the community resource vehicles. These vehicles, these last 2 vehicles that are coming online, they were purchased with a coronavirus grant through the federal government. You know, when we first when they first received the grant, we were in the height of the pandemic, and the initial use was going to be to provide supplies and go out in the community and provide to citizens who are in need of coronavirus aid and things like that. And actually, now that coronavirus has, waned at some point, it's still going to be a great resource, community resource center for critical incidents. We still be able to distribute sanitation supplies. The vehicle's been used as a public engagement vehicle, and various other uses when critical incidents occur, if and when a natural disaster occurs. And let's see here. The vehicles, both of the vehicles can serve as mobile offices. They have computers, they have printers, they have satellite TV in there. They have whiteboards, they have communication systems, radios that can be used throughout the county and the state as a mobile command and communication center. Our older vehicle, the bigger one, is about 13 years old. It's kind of like in the middle or the tail end of its lifespan. The last time we did an estimate for that particular vehicle to upgrade the technology in the vehicle, I think it was 2 years ago, almost right before the virus hit, or somewhere around before 2020, I would say. We did get an estimate, and to upgrade the electronics in the vehicle was somewhere around $92,000. This vehicle, that bigger, older vehicle, did cost initially 13 years ago $599K. So the new vehicles now today, they could probably run closer to $1 million. So I don't know, at some point, maybe the department have a conversation whether there's funding available to upgrade this vehicle, or even look at purchase a new one at some point. But we do have these other 3 smaller, more accessible vehicles coming online. So we have 1 online, and we have 2 more coming online. So we talk about the fiscal costs and impact report. You see some numbers of how much the vehicles cost. We talk about the training, ongoing costs. Most of all the maintenance and things like that, that'll be done by our courtyard through the city of Oakland. The storage costs, things like that will be at our courtyard. The impact, both of the vehicles can be used as command posts for any large scale event. They work as a mobile central location where resources can stage and be deployed from. Provides the police department with on-site command, supply and control of communications hub that is needed for large community events or critical incidents such as natural disasters to support public safety. The deployment or appearance of certain vehicles may escalate tension, provoke fear, prevent clear communication, or increase distrust. The department's mobile command vehicles are specifically painted so as not to be intimidating or distressing. I think if you saw them the other day at the Coliseum, yeah, it kind of looks just like a big white RV with some painting on it. So we talk about let's see here, all maintenance through the city of Oakland. Mobile command vehicles will typically be used within the areas that OPD has jurisdiction, or in areas of the state of California where OPD is specifically conducting operations or investigation. This includes the entirety of the city of Oakland and may include neighboring jurisdictions or other areas within the state. And I do have to work on the track record. I haven't had an opportunity to finish that last portion and enter that information, but I should be able to have that added in the next few days or so.
Fleming, are you going to add in the 2 additional vehicles that just got purchased?
Yes. I just found out they were here just right before the meeting started. So
and
I will add that.
Do you happen to know when that purchase order happened?
So it happened, we've been working on it for possibly sometime last year. We started working on it maybe around mid-year last year, I believe. I didn't start with the initial process, but it kind of came into my lap somewhere. I believe it was somewhere around October, maybe last year, October, November, maybe, possibly. I have to look back at a long list of emails and things.
That's okay. I just wanted to make sure that it was before the year so that we remain in compliance with AB 481. Since the department, before acquiring or purchasing, needs to obtain approval. It sounds like this might be in that gray area where it was purchased last year, so before the law passed, and so probably clears that hurdle. Thank you. All right. Let's see. Why don't we, sorry to make you switch back and forth, but maybe we could go back to the policy and we could start off by asking or seeing if anyone has any questions, concerns, suggestions for the policy. Ms. Tu?
I have mostly backgroundish questions. Is that okay for right now?
Sure.
Okay. So the mobile command vehicle and the community resource vehicle, both of these are mobile command centers?
Yes.
Yes, okay, cool. Because I noticed that I forget which, the impact report used MCC and the policy used MCC and the impact report talked about MCV and CRV, and I wasn't sure if they were both referring to the same thing.
Yes, they refer to both to the same vehicles, to the same vehicles.
Okay, and then you said that there's only one officer with a Class B, and that's for the older, larger MCV, but not the 3 CRVs.
Yes, the larger one. You just need a Class C for the smaller one that we just recently purchased.
Okay. How many officers have their Class C?
So everyone's got a regular Class C license. The Class B is for the larger, heavier weighted vehicles.
Got it. And you were also talking about possibly upgrading the MCV. One thing I was curious about is if we're going from a situation where we already have 1, maybe 2 vehicles up to 4, what the purpose would be for upgrading instead of decommissioning in favor of the newer units.
Well, I was just mentioning, I don't know the department. I don't even know if that's even a realistic thing that, is going to happen. But I know that the guys that were mainly handling that vehicle for the last several years, they had, before we purchased those 3 vehicles, they had went into a process of looking at what it would cost to upgrade that one. That was prior to any mention of us getting those new smaller vehicles.
Got it. Oh, okay. Yeah, that totally makes sense. And then I saw someplace that there's a joint ownership between the department and Oakland Fire.
So when they first purchased the vehicle, it was jointly purchased. And so the fire department and can have access to the vehicle when needed during a critical incident, natural disaster. I mean, we're in the Bay Area, so if a major fire happened or something like that, or earthquake. So
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you know when the last time they used it was?
No, I don't personally know. I would just assume that when we've had a last fire or something like that, but not particular. No, I don't offhand. No.
Okay. And that's and for the CRVs that were purchased with the COVID grant, is that also kind of jointly with Oakland Fire or entirely the departments?
No, that's entirely the Oakland Police Department.
Okay, got it. And then last week, I forget who asked and who told us, we were talking about the number of deployments, and it sounded like the MCV was deployed several times a week. Is that right?
So what was the smaller one, the newer one, that's the one with the Class C license that's been deployed more commonly than the bigger MCV vehicle.
Got it. Okay, so the smaller one gets deployed several times a week, but the bigger one does not?
No, it doesn't. Just it kind of depends on what is occurring and what the need is for. And generally, these smaller vehicles with the Class C license are more easily able to get deployed than the bigger one, because we only have one person currently that's has a current license and training to drive it.
Yeah, how does that work? Does the one person just drive it and then at the end of the shift it's got to go back in, or?
Yeah, he just he works in day shift, so if he's on duty, then we'll call him up on the radio and he'll come out there. It takes he has to go out and pick it up at the airport, and he'll bring it out to the location, and then when the event is over, he'll take it back out there and leave it there. And then that's for that larger vehicle. That's pretty much how it works.
Got it. And how often is the larger vehicle deployed?
I would say over the last few months, maybe once or twice.
So
larger, yes.
Once or twice every month or two?
Every 2 months or so, and probably with these new vehicles coming on board, I could see it becoming less and less deployed out there in the field. And most will opt for, or will only be able to, readily get that smaller one out in the field.
Got it. Okay, thank you so much. That was really, really helpful background.
Any other questions or comments about the policy itself, I-28, that's up on the screen?
I think if the department's up for specifying that the mobile command center includes the specific vehicles, then that might help with not creating confusion between the big one and the small ones.
What do you mean?
One of this document uses the language MCC, and the policy, sorry, not the policy, the impact report doesn't use the word MCC. And I'm wondering if making it more clear that the MCV and the CRV are both mobile command centers would be helpful.
I think we can do that in the impact report.
Yes, we can do that.
Well, thank you. I was having a little bit, sorry, is it okay for me to jump in?
Okay.
Yeah. I was having a little bit of difficulty with the authorized uses, just because it, it feels kind of broad of these can get used when you want to centralize information or when the presence will further the department's crime strategy. And I don't know if authorized uses here would be the right place, or the impact report would be the right place to give a little bit more sense for how the department decides when to deploy it, what factors go into deploying it, anything like that.
I was thinking the same thing. I also saw that the first paragraph does list out critical incidents, natural disasters, community events, and search operations. I also know that last week when we were asking, we heard that there are some times that it might also be used as, a deterrent, just being big, visible at a particular location, which is part of the department's crime strategy. I wonder if those are things that we could put in to paragraph 2, perhaps. Lieutenant Turner?
Yeah, thank you. I think the one of the reasons why this is very broad is because there's constantly different ways where we try and use these to the benefit of the community, and because they are very strictly, not weaponized, not militaristic in terms of their presence or the way that they are painted, right, with the looking sort of like bread trucks or large SUVs, all white, that we really, I think the chief especially envisions these being used for a lot of different strategies. So for instance, I know we do have a victim service specialist, Bridget Cook, who is developing a lot of things around serving victims of crime. And the chief does envision, I think one of the reasons why he's looking forward to utilizing all three of those smaller vehicles Lieutenant Fleming was mentioning is he envisions these vehicles coming out to homicide scenes for our community chaplains, our victim service specialists, perhaps DVP, to centralize in the location of resources, to start developing some ideas about how to inform the community, how to deal with some of the vicarious trauma that we see from some of these things. So it is something where we did specifically, I think Lieutenant Fleming did a good job in specifically making these broad because of the way that sort of we're evolving around that. We definitely can talk about some of the past uses and how the department looks or maybe expand in some these other areas or even in this authorized uses as some of the examples where we see right now, critical incidents, things like that, even some of the things I've talked about. But I think that we do want to keep it broad because there's sort of a plug and play option to deliver services that are kind of just a blank slate that any of our city partners, when they get on these type of scenes, can use.
Is there an alternative then to perhaps if we are unable to, because of the departments using this vehicle, we are unable to be more specific for authorized uses, perhaps we could be a little bit more specific or say something in prohibited uses. I mean, I hear that it's not going to be weaponized, which means that it can't be, it shall not be equipped with any weapon systems. I suppose we could say that. Could we say, I don't know, it's not going to be used for tactical team transports or something? I don't know what else there is. Miss Two.
I wonder if it would be helpful to get specific about when the MCV gets used versus when the CRV gets used. Because that might be an area we can explore in the authorized uses.
Yeah, so I don't know, Sean, if you want to talk a little bit about this, but I know we try, and especially for these when we're talking about somewhat interchangeable, but technology that is evolving and things like vehicles, we try and keep them relatively general, just because we don't know what's coming next. If a lot of these vehicles come on grants or things like this come on grants, so we happen to apply, for a grant out of the blue, and then they approve it, and OFD and us, get this huge thing that's called the ECB or whatever, right? If we're specific in a policy, then it suddenly stops making sense when you get a new piece of equipment. So it's one of the reasons why we kind of keep it general. But we absolutely can talk about, hey, when it might be more appropriate to bring a smaller vehicle or in the authorized uses but more around general deployment strategies. I think some of the things that Lieutenant Fleming talked in there about, knowing what the route is, the places where these are going to be going, some place like way up in the hills and one of these twisty streets would definitely not be somewhere where I would feel comfortable having that large vehicle in there, because who knows if you're going to get it out, right, versus one of the smaller vehicles or something like that. But those are a little more like just I don't want to say common sense, but something that we're trying to that anyone would deal with a large vehicle.
I wonder for the larger vehicle, given that it's coming up on its end of life, there's only one person who can drive it. How much sense it makes for it to stick around?
It's still useful because it still has, I'm sorry. It's still very useful. If we have a large scale call out, it still has a CAD system in there where dispatchers can sit down and dispatch calls. They can also, it's just like when we used to use it at the sporting events, they can dispatch calls and it dispatch officers from inside the vehicle, which the smaller vehicles do not have that capability. So that's one of the major differences between the large vehicle. And I wouldn't say at this point that vehicle is ready to be retired, because we still, I mean, every time something happens, we just never know the size and scope of what the issue is going to be out there. So I don't think it's ready. It's 13 years old, still works properly. It could use some technology upgrades, you know, because what technology changes, every 5 to 7 years. I don't know, people may be more into technology than me, but I know they change quickly now. It definitely could use upgrades, but it's still a very useful vehicle. And I talk about that because that's one of the biggest things that it does. It's, you know, we can put a dispatch center in there in the case of a natural disaster. And even if our communications were to go down at our communication center, this vehicle can supplant that somewhat for a short period of time.
I hope you write down everything you just said, because that was really helpful. Before you said that, I didn't know that there was this dispatch center. And so that says to me that might be something you want to capture within the authorized uses of lay out the situations in which you would want a mobile dispatch center, and make a note that that's what this vehicle is used for. I don't know if there's a more appropriate section, but that what you just said feels like it's very specific, while still giving the department a lot of room to have the flexibility that you're looking for. But at the same time, it gives transparency to the public about how it's used, why you would want to use it over these newer vehicles, and yeah, I hope you'll use that.
Yeah, I can add that to the and you want that maybe added to the let's see here, to the authorized uses, correct?
Yeah, like maybe you want to say these are the situations in which you should use the MCV, and this is why.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
We'll get the recording posted in a day or so that you don't have to pull it all from memory.
Thank you. I surprised my own self.
Okay. So I hear 2 potential changes to this policy, one with additional description about its use as a central communication or dispatch hub under authorized use, and potentially a sentence about prohibiting any weapon systems to be installed on it under prohibited use. Any other suggestions, changes, or comments to the policy?
Would it be helpful to spell out whether or how it should be used for community events? What I'm thinking about is the Bearcat is explicitly not a community event vehicle, and I'm wondering if it should be explicitly spelled out whether either the MCV, the CRV, or all MCCs are authorized for that situation.
All 3 vehicles can be used for community events, but where would you like, if you want me to add some additional language, where would you like that put?
Under authorized uses.
Okay. And Joe, if that's okay, we could add that.
Yeah, I think we can definitely say that they're authorized to use for community events.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think about how to get more specific, but and give a little bit more transparency here for you.
And I also think we talked last time about pulling in some language from another policy around surveillance and the use of the vehicle for approved or authorized surveillance investigations or activities.
I remember that. Thank you for bringing that up. I think it was mentioned that one of these vehicles has a single live feed camera pointed outside, not recording. And that perhaps a concern was that it would be used for surveillance, maybe either to record stuff that's going on the street or have some device inside that might record or surveil things that are in the area. I anticipate that the department would not be using this vehicle for that. I'm getting a look from Lieutenant Turner like I may not be, I don't know what that look is actually, so.
Well, yeah, it was more like a, I mean, it's just, I think, like any other police vehicle, in that anything that the officers see from there, right, is going to be, something that they may act upon. Now, obviously, one person there, the guy with the Class B license, yeah, I'm not exactly sure who that is, but I don't think that's a person who's making their lifetime running after people that they see doing criminal activity, especially from that vehicle. But on the other hand, yeah, they are not, the department does not anticipate using those as surveillance vehicles. They're about the most conspicuous thing you could drive, besides like a blimp or something. So,
I wonder if there is something that can be written or said about that. Perhaps, I know that it has one of them has a camera, which makes it a little bit difficult. It might be the standard. It might be standard on that. Perhaps we could write in that it cannot be modified to have additional surveillance equipment. Since I mean, like, you can't stop an officer from watching what they see, right? But I don't think that's what we're getting at here.
Yeah, well, that camera, yeah, it doesn't record or anything. It doesn't even have the capability of recording. So, and I think, as you say, it came with the vehicle 13 years ago. So it's never been used in that capacity. So, but yeah, I guess we can add that cannot be modified to be used as a surveillance camera.
Yeah, just surveillance equipment to the thing.
Yep.
Like, I think of things like a Stingray inside, right? Or cameras, 360 cameras watching the area. If you're good with that, that's fine. I think addresses the concern.
Yeah, so I do think I think we're fine saying that we're not going to add surveillance cameras. There is definitely a possibility we would add cameras on the vehicle. I can think of two reasons. One would be for safety if we are deploying it out with one person, and the other would be for collisions, right? To like backup cameras or anything like that. So, but yeah, surveillance cameras, no, I think that would be fine.
And a thought just came up. I know that the department did not get ALPRs reauthorized, but I wonder, is there ever going to be a situation where ALPRs or automatic license plate readers would be attached to this thing?
So there is, I know that did get, the last I think I remember was it was sent back to the PAC. Okay, so there's a possibility. I know some of the other vendors, for instance, Axon does do a combination of vehicle cameras like that you see for patrol vehicles with ALPR. So that might be something if the department decided that we wanted to, or, for our accountability purposes of our policy said, all OPD vehicles shall be equipped with a in-car video, then it's possible that something like that might happen. I doubt it, because we've always had exceptions for vehicles like this. Utility vehicles, we have several trucks that we drive things around and things like that. And we've always had exceptions for those because they are being used to, for these sort of utilitarian purposes.
Lieutenant Thomason?
Yeah, on the statement of 360 cameras. I kind of want to stay away from that on the newer vehicles. I don't know about the older one, but I know the newer one does have 360 cameras around it, just so officers can see, because there's not a lot of windows on it. So they can just see their immediate surroundings. And those are already attached, but they're not recording. It's just there for officer safety. And also there's a rear camera just so for backing up and seeing what's behind them.
Thank you for that. Commissioner Jordan?
Yeah. Sorry, my kid is trying to talk to me. Got it. Okay, we'll discuss this later, okay? Buddy, go. Thank you. Sorry about that. He literally walked up right as you called my name. As I was unmuting. Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking about like the concern about surveillance is sort of like sort of secret surveillance for the most part, right? If you have a mobile command unit that is intentionally posted in one of the uses, I mean, in a lot of uses, it is posted to show police presence, both at events and you know, when it's being used and posted in like a high crime area when there's been, you know, a series of shootings. The intention is to show there are police there. If the police are standing outside, they are, and they're watching. I know this is something, you know, similar to what, you know, Lieutenant Turner just said, but you know, their eyes are working. They are surveilling their surroundings. It is, you know, it is that sort of additional layer of, you know, license plate readers, or you know, I think people have concerns around facial recognition or things like the triggerfish, and I think so. For me, like 360 cameras don't necessarily isn't necessarily the biggest concern for me. That's just adding sort of situational awareness for the officers who are sort of, you know, the necessity of sort of being on site with the vehicle. It's not being posted unmanned, and they, you know, should be alert to what's happening around them. It's kind of their job. But using, so my concern would be if it was rolled out for, I said, you know, and again, I know we've discussed this is not being used in the context of protests, but like things like, you know, if there's a triggerfish being used or some of those other electronic surveillance devices that people are sort of less aware of, that for me is the bigger issue of it being added, additional equipment being added onto beyond. I mean, even recording devices, it's weird. It's like a double-edged sword, right? We say we don't want it to be recorded, yet we insist that officers wear body cams if something happens. So we don't want them recording us, but you know, surreptitiously. That said, if there's a police vehicle, and there is, I think, at least at this point, some sort of at least understanding that there's potentially recording happening, just from things like dash cams and body cams. I don't know where I guess I'm kind of just making that a little less straightforward by sort of bringing up, there is a nuance, but there is a nuance to this, to some of these issues. And so for me, I think it would be helpful to be maybe not just be more specific around like surveillance equipment and what that means, and how we sort of phrase that beyond just sort of additional cameras. And does recording a thing institute surveillance or constitute surveillance? Maybe yes. I'm guessing probably most people would feel yes. I guess that's all I have for the time being.
Thank you. Very thoughtful. Ms. Tu?
I have some non-surveillance thoughts, but I'll offer one suggestion, which is last time we talked a little bit about how some community members find the presence of a MCC to be a comforting thing. They find it very reassuring. And it sounds like we're talking about a different situation where people might feel invaded or menaced by the presence. And I wonder if in the impact report, the department could talk a little bit about that, about how, exact same vehicle, maybe it's even parked in the exact same place, but some people are going to feel different about it. It's not a reflection of about anything about those people, just that people have different reactions. And if the department can write a little bit about how they both balance that presence and how they stay cognizant of when they are a welcome, reaffirming presence versus when they're kind of more of a sinister, lurking presence. And what the department does to like tell the difference, move towards the former, recognize when they're in that ladder and how to get out of it. That might be something helpful for the impact report.
I am going to ask you, Jennifer, to perhaps draft a sentence or two to help the department out on that. That sounds like actually a pretty good encapsulation for them to add, and we'll see how the department might tweak that.
I would be happy to. I have no idea how the department makes that analysis of how they are being perceived and received within the neighborhood. So I'd be happy to do that, but I'm going to need a little bit of help with it, just in terms of what it is the department does.
Not really hearing anything from the department side. I think they may also be thinking about that.
I'm more than happy to hop on a phone, Teams, Zoom, anything before we next meet to just brainstorm a little bit and talk about it with anyone in the department. I did have some non-surveillance questions, but I see Commissioner Jackson Kesting's hand is up, so I don't know if she wanted to keep talking about.
Sure. Just in regards to that statement too, I was wondering, is the concern around the size of it? Is that sort of the presence that we'd like to address? Because
I suspect different people may have different reasons why to have a reaction.
Okay, because I think if we end up going down the road of adding language like that, I feel like people can have the same variance in reaction to seeing any marked police vehicle. So, I mean, some people might find the presence of just a regular police car really comforting in their neighborhood, whereas others, have a lot of visceral reactions. So I personally don't know if it's a big added benefit unless we want to expand it to all the vehicles. But I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate here.
Well, there is a line about it in the impact report under impact. So perhaps we could talk a little bit more about it when we get there. Would that be all right?
Sounds good. Thank you.
And Jennifer, I can meet with you between now and the next time, I guess, and we can brainstorm and talk about that a little bit more.
Sounds good. If you email me a couple of days and times that you are free, I will do the same and reply back.
Okay, sounds good.
Could I ask some more questions, Jesse? Okay, cool. So when the MCCs get deployed, how many, is it just a driver or are there multiple officers, and or does that change whether it's an MCV or an RCV?
It's generally the driver and one other officer.
Okay, got it. And then one thing I was thinking about for the authorized uses is I was going back in my head to that situation with the one person with their class B, and maybe it would be helpful to add something in the authorized uses section or in a different part of the policy that talks about how the department safeguards against driver fatigue when they have a very limited pool of authorized drivers.
Well, that one officer rarely ever takes it out. Like I said, once every 2 months maybe or something. And generally the vehicle may go out there for at the longest, maybe 8 hours or something. And he generally takes it home, takes it back after towards the end of his shift. So, and then sometimes we've actually have left it out there if we can't get a driver. But like I say, we got those 3 new vehicles. So the older one, the use would probably be dropping down very significantly once we get the next 2 of them online and functioning.
Does
Yeah.
the department have, sorry, go ahead. Well, okay. Does the department have some other policy or MOR about members coming to work of sound mind, body, rest, etc.?
Let's see. So for our policy, yeah, we have an overtime policy that specifically spells out how long or how many days of overtime people can work, that hours. For instance, we do have a requirement that members have at least 1 day off a week. We have a cap on the amount of hours unless they get authorization. And we do have in our MOU, our memorandum of understanding with the union, 8 hours between shifts. So all those things, yeah, we do have those set up. This is and another thing with this vehicle is that the driving part is actually really short. It's just sort of getting it from the courtyard to wherever it needs to go. And then it sits, it may sit there for several hours, but during that time, it's not really like a long haul trucker where the person has to be alert for the entire time. Especially with a second officer there, that person can go take breaks. They can, go get some food, go back to the station, whatever it is. So the fatigue really isn't too much of an issue, unlike if it was being driven for 8 hours.
I think Lieutenant Fleming said that sometimes it just gets left there. What contributes to deciding to leave it there?
I know we have left it there a little longer than when we didn't have a driver. Maybe the driver might have to leave because we're short on drivers these days for that large vehicle. But that was before that we have these newer vehicles coming online. So we don't anticipate that shouldn't ever be a problem going forward because we have these 3 new vehicles. And then, like I say, I anticipate us having at least another 2 or 3 people. We just have some training and some has to go on, and we should have 2 or 3 other drivers that can drive the large vehicle when needed.
When the large vehicle gets left, I know you said it probably won't come up again, but in the past when it's gotten left, have officers just hung out in it but just not driven it, or?
Yeah, they just stay with it until the officer can get back out there to pick it up.
Got it. So it's not like everyone goes home and the vehicle stays wherever it is by itself.
No, it stays with 2 officers all the time.
Okay. Any other thoughts, comments, or suggestions on the policy? Let's turn to the impact report. Could you switch for us, Lieutenant Fleming?
Yeah, give me 1 second. There we go.
Appreciate it. So I know that you will add the addition of the 2 new vehicles that that department has gotten.
Yes.
I see. Let's see. Other thoughts, comments, or suggestions about this impact report? This too?
When a MCC is deployed, does that mean how do personnel get assigned to it? Like, is it someone rolls up and the answer is instead of a patrol cart that you are taking out the MCC, or in situations when you need an MCC, does that mean you have to call someone in for extra?
No, it's just people on duty. Like I think I mentioned earlier about the 1 officer he works day watch. So if he's here, we would call him on the radio and he'll come out and pick it up. We won't call him in from home to come out and take out that large vehicle. Now with the smaller ones, we're going to have numerous officers available that can drive that vehicle because they all have a Class C license. So they'll all be on duty officers that will be able to use the vehicle.
And does that mean that when it's deployed, they're reassigned from what they normally do, or?
Could be somebody, it could be some people from that work inside the building, inside the traffic operations section, the special operations division. Could be somebody that's assigned to a duty inside the building, or it could be somebody from the field. And like I think Joe mentioned, it, you just pick it up, you drive it, and you drop it off, and you might be assigned to stay there, or somebody else may be assigned to stay with the vehicle. So just depends on what particular situation is going on.
Yeah, I guess one thing I'm kind of angling towards is there ever a situation where deploying the AMCC would mean that overtime would be required? And whether it is or isn't, that feels like it's relevant information to include in the impact report.
I can't say it could not entail overtime because I don't, like the commanders who bring it out, it could be for different times of the day and night. So I don't know. That could be, it's a possibility. Yes.
Hey, Jennifer, I think that goes back to the same thing of maybe us generating an I code for tracking purposes, which kind of assists. I know that's what we normally do. We have kind of mass overtime sign-up slips, specifically when you're going to deploy this. Maybe it's part of the 90-day or 30-day crime plan or operation. So you usually have an I code associated to this. So kind of similar to everything else we discussed with the robots and the drones, we can maybe just make sure that when we are deploying this, and if it is overtime, we just assign the I code, and it's better for tracking purposes. And then to go back on how to track maybe how people dislike it, you can maybe also look at any type of service complaints within internal affairs, whether or not maybe someone called up internal affairs to say, you know what, I didn't like this, because there are sometimes service complaints saying, hey, you know what, some patrol car drove by my neighborhood, I didn't like it. So they do track that. So that'd be one way of tracking for you.
Yeah, that's a good idea. The one thing I'm thinking ahead to is, and the reason why I keep coming back to this across the policies, is the annual report is going to require the total annual cost. So it's not just the equipment cost, it also includes the personnel cost. And so if there's things that we can be doing now to support the department in making it a easy report to write next year, then I hope we can make those changes now.
Yeah, I'm sure we can track any overtime through the ICO system. That's fairly simple to track. So we do it through all kind of things throughout the department.
On those same lines, I actually had a thought. Person with a Class B license, or anybody who does have a Class B license, is the department paying for the time that they are working on that Class B license? Classes, courses, whatever.
No, I'm gonna have to work with training on that. The one person who has it, he did his I don't know, about 7 or 8 years ago before I came to traffic, and I would have to talk to him and find out the particulars of what the department paid for him to do that.
Okay, that might be something to think about for the annual report. Other thoughts, questions, or suggestions for the impact report? I will say that I didn't see a manufacturer's description. I think AB 481 specifically calls that out.
In terms of description, you want what?
The
I mean,
manufacturer's description. I think you just pull it from the website.
and that is that on the impact report, we got the Lynch diversified vehicles Freightliner MT55. Is it 30,000 pounds? Is it more needed than that?
Yeah, well, if that's what the manufacturer's description is, but I think the manufacturer may have a different description.
I'll go back and look through some of the when they first purchased that MCV. I should be able to get, I guess I'll get more description than for the CRV, the community resource vehicle then.
Might be in the operator manual.
Yeah, so you're saying you want more than just the name and the model number?
I'm saying the state law requires more.
Okay.
There's for the impact report, there's a comment in the chat from Rachel Beck. Do you have past examples of the vehicles being used during natural disasters? Probably something for a track record.
Yeah, I'm sure we've used them. I'm sure we've used them in past fires and past earthquakes and different things. So I can look back on that and add that to it.
I personally would be interested in hearing about when the department has used it in the past versus when the fire department has used it in the past. Right, because if it turns out that the department, but that only the fire department uses it in natural disasters, or only the whichever the other one is, then that might be something interesting for people to understand.
Okay, that sounds fine.
Any other thoughts, comments, and suggestions on this impact report? Going once, going twice. All right, I think that's plenty to get you going. Lieutenant Fleming, thank you for your work.
Hey, I'll work on it. I'll be talking to you shortly, I believe, Jennifer, correct?
Yep, that's right.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. Could you stop sharing your screen, please? Let's see. Why don't we have a report back about how Friday went?
Well, first off, let me say it was, I think David was there. Angela was there, and John. I think it was very informative for everybody. We good job on Jeff Thomason for also bringing out one of the large vans so you can see it and go inside and see what the command post really looks like. We brought out all the robots, and then we can probably ask everybody what you thought, David and Angela. And I know even Angela, you got an opportunity to even maneuver one of the robots and see how difficult or how easy it could be. And then we also brought out the tire puncture, the window glass puncture, and then showed you the pan disruptor. We didn't load it, obviously, for safety reasons. We purposely, obviously, didn't bring out the drones because you would only be able to physically see them. And also, we wouldn't be able to fly them there because it's a restricted airspace. So it wouldn't be, we wouldn't be calling Washington, D.C. to ask for approval for that. But I think it was very productive. And then we're also able to talk to Sergeant Ron Johnson on the LRAD. And I think everybody firsthand got to see the alert tone, the notification tone, and walk a distance away and stand behind it, stand next to it, stand in front of it, stand from a distance, just to see how you felt. So I'll leave it up to everybody else for David and Angela to kind of tell us what you thought.
Yeah, I thought it was really helpful actually to see a lot of this in person, live and in person. If you check your email, I just sent a series of photos and even a small short video as well. I think it was even more helpful to see sort of the size of things and given some of its use that we've been discussing, like how feasible it would be used to, for instance, like the tire puncture, to have any impact on an individual or person. So I think that alleviated a few of our concerns. We were able to ask a lot of questions, and yeah, we did a little navigating of one of the smaller robots to see how it worked. I think one of the other takeaways I would say is for the larger robot and some of the attachments, it's definitely a big device, and it takes quite a while to get set up. So I think that also kind of speaks to the frequency of deployment and why it's only been used a few times. I think they've got some better alternatives with the smaller robots and maybe even a different solution in the future. So yeah, I really appreciate everyone's time. It was super informative, and it's just really good to see these things live and in person. And I think having that opportunity is even better than like watching videos on YouTube about it. So yeah, I appreciate everyone's time. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, I thought it was very helpful, and it was, I think for me, most specifically, it was helpful in seeing the LRAD and experiencing what that actually, what it sounded like from a few different perspectives at a few different volumes. I walked out probably about 40 yards away from it, and had them run the warning tone at half volume, at full volume. And at full volume, it was unpleasantly loud, but it wasn't, I didn't feel like I was in danger in any way. That said, it is clearly a thing we want to, it could be abused, it could be misused for sure, but given that it is essentially not used, or rarely, as I understand it, it's essentially never used, and it's only being used as sort of a megaphone. And in that circumstance, it definitely felt like some of my concerns were alleviated around what misuse could be, or how easy it could be to potentially misuse or accidentally misuse. Yeah, the robots, it was interesting to see the sort of the variety. I guess I didn't know that there was, I knew that there was more than one. I didn't know that the sort of, there was that little tiny one. And seeing all the tools, the potential sort of attachable tools, was interesting and helpful. And almost, as interesting and helpful as all of that was, just talking to folks who were actually using them as part of their job, to really hear sort of like what, like their perspective on potential use, how it's been used in the past, how it could be used in the future, how our policy writing potentially affects its use in the future. And so yeah, I really appreciate everyone taking their time out to come out, because there's a lot of folks from the department there who were very helpful for us, and I appreciate Angela and John for both coming out as well and sort of taking an interest. And I'm sad that Jesse and Jennifer weren't able to attend. I'm sure you wanted to. I'm sure you would have had additional very interesting feedback on all of the different tools we saw.
I am very sorry to have missed it. Fortunately, that's the nature of court sometimes. Did you have both the 100X and the 450X for the LRAD out there?
No, just the small one.
Okay. Department has the 450X, right?
That's correct. Yeah, he only brought out the 100X though.
And I think that, in talking to Officer Johnson, I believe, that was the device that was used most frequently. That was the sort of the go-to device, and that the big one was sort of slower to sort of harder and slower to utilize because of its size, and it was just sort of less functional for them, for the department. Similarly to the big and small control center, mobile control center, mobile command center.
Okay, thank you so much. Return to the LRAD policy.
Are you gonna, you got it, Jesse?
Yeah, I got it.
All right.
Okay. Unfortunately, track changes are on, and I don't get to use simplified markup. So things that are in red are being, well, let me just go through and see if I can decipher these changes. This right here is, there it is, deleted. Don't need the title twice. Working through the policy. I proposed moving this exigent circumstances paragraph to a footnote to try to clean it up a little bit. You'll see it down. Sorry, layout's weird. Well, now I broke it. Sorry about that. Oh, I have no idea what I did. That did not work either. Sorry. Let's try that again. So I moved this to a footnote, like we did in the other policy, so that it would clean it up a little bit. That's that paragraph about exigent circumstances when the LRAD may be used to establish communications. There is a lot more editing in the warning tone section, but I suppose before we get to that, having experienced the device, commissioners, do you have any thoughts about the authorized use section? If not, that's okay. Just keep going.
Yeah, I'm just trying to quickly skim it again to make sure that nothing has sort of changed in my perspective on it.
We're looking at paragraph 4, and we're mainly the limiter there is may only be used to establish communications in these specified situations. So I guess the question is there anything to add here? Are some of these not particularly useful or shouldn't have LRAD usage? Or be limited in some way after experiencing it?
I think you could add under 4A just disaster and emergency management. I think that's just a little bit broader because disasters kind of imply natural disasters, whereas it could be just an emergency. And then other than that, I think crowd management operations is pretty broad and would encompass any other scenario that might not be explicitly outlined there.
Is there a technical definition of what emergency is?
I want to say that there is, because there are federal and state agencies that are focused on, like, emergency disaster relief, which are two separate things. I could look it up and see if I can see if there's a pertinent definition.
That would be awesome if we could footnote it.
Yeah. Let me see what I can find.
From the department's perspective, I think crowd management operations would be items that fall under the crowd control policy.
Yes. Don't I have it written the same way for UAVs? I thought I did. Going off the top of my head.
I think that there are,
Actually, no, I don't. Sorry, because we don't have it for crowd control management. We only have it for sideshow and either in exigent circumstances or assault on an officer. Like if someone were to like throw a brick at an officer or a rock at an officer, and then we're deployed. But I don't have crowd control management on there.
I'll take a few extra seconds here for authorized use. Understanding, of course, that the department is only planning on using this to establish communications, and that's really what this is describing. The only other thing I can think of, well, off the top of my head, is that I might move this particular paragraph to the deployment. I have another section down below, deployment considerations. Things for a person to think about when they're deploying, or as they're using it. Angela?
There's just a note in the chat if you could zoom in a little bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry. Oh, that's not it. There it is. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't do that. Sorry about that. All right. Can always come back to it. Let me go through the other portion, which is, well, the warning tone. Oh, sorry, Jennifer.
Can you go back to section 5, deployment authorization? I reread B as in Bravo, and I don't understand what it means, and I'm hoping someone can explain it to me.
I understood it to mean that authorization doesn't happen at the event, but as part of pre-planning the event.
Got it. Thank you.
Correct.
Okey-doke. So warning tone. I'm looking at new commissioners, Jackson Castana and Commissioner Jordan. I was working on this the other day, maybe a day or two ago. But I'm really interested in hearing your thoughts about whatever it is, warning, alert, tone.
So I guess I'm looking at this, and under what circumstances would it be used during a tactical team operation?
I think a couple times. So usually a couple things that we do will be obviously approach of the location, make sure we have the rear perimeter set, the front perimeter, the DAT team, our snipers are set. And then we went from, hey, let's try to make some notifications. So we get on the PA system of our vehicle, or we get on the air horn, or we get on the siren or the air horn to try to wake up people, because sometimes we are doing if we're doing a night service, we might be doing it at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, all types of hours. We've even done some at 1 in the morning. So this would be more of going to the house. Say we do an air horn, doesn't wake up, we get no contact, we get no information that the lights are turning on, then we do a siren, like a blurb, or we'll do continuously sign a siren. Sometimes we go all the way to, now that's not working, let's throw a flashbang to wake up people. Well, this could be the alert tone or the warning tone. Also an option of, hey, maybe this will wake up the people inside the house so we can get some communication. So that's basically what we're looking at.
Okay. I mean, so isn't that sort of essentially the same as number 2 there, to gain immediate attention of persons and or vehicles, vessel occupants?
Absolutely, that can totally fall in the same line as section 2.
I just, because I wonder, because it is set aside as like a separate item, I wondered if there was some other sort of usage for it beyond just sort of getting folks' attention, which feels like it's covered. If you I don't know, I suppose you could add just, add building or dwelling to vehicle, vessel. Or just make that as a separate, I don't know, I feel like as needed is always one of those kind of sketchy terms that is going to make people feel marginally sort of like, I don't have an expectation that as needed means that it's going to be used in a harmful way, but if we understand what that need looks like, it's and do you perceive there being some other potential use for it beyond that?
No, I don't.
And how does it, I mean, I guess and under what circumstances is it used as a distraction?
Great question. Again, that'd be the same, depending on, say you have a barricaded suspect, say you have something to the effect of, I need the suspect who's in the rear house to look out the rear window while we make entry to the right side, or while we approach on the right side. It might be anything from a beanbag round to a flashbang to get that suspect or the suspects to look at a different direction so that you can have some movement in the front, or so that you can gain entry, or whatever the case might be. So that's another issue, or another utilization of the warning tone, where it could distract somebody, make that person or persons look to the right because you're doing something on the left.
Okay. I think because one of the things that probably folks in the community have a concern around is a phrase like as a distraction could be sort of double talk for using it as using the warning tone and in more an extended way at a high volume in order to sort of disorient a person or persons who are maybe barricaded or in a building or dwelling where you're serving a warrant or something. I just want to make sure that is not the sort of intention. Again, I am not presuming sort of bad faith on your part. I'm just trying to sort of make sure that we
could have left it as a tactical advantage, but I think, I mean, I know that's a lot in our policies where you want to utilize something as a tactical advantage, but then it goes to, well, what do you mean by tactical advantage? So,
Right. How does
Um,
that provide a tactical advantage is
Exactly.
the issue. So yeah, maybe as a distraction or to draw attention or like to draw attention of you know a subject for to gain maybe this is this sort of I don't know, is there a situation in which that would be used
well, I mean,
outside of tactical teams?
I guess if we kind of talk about it, David, I mean, if we're talking about it like that too, I mean, we could even say that maybe that falls under two. To gain the immediate attention of a person would also serve the purpose to distract somebody because I'm gaining their immediate attention at a different location.
Right.
Here's the problem I got.
Yep.
OPD's position is that this is being used as a communication tool.
Yeah.
Some of the things that you have described, beam background, flashbang, you don't really see those as communication tools.
Correct.
That's to distract, right?
Yeah.
Distraction or its use as a distraction is completely different than using it as a communication tool. That falls outside of your authorized use above. And so are you saying communication device plus this? Because David's tracking some of the comments that I have on the right.
I see what you're saying, but even if I'm talking to you, if I'm talking to you, that's also distractionary because I can literally be communicating with you using the LRAD, talking to you to even gain your distraction at a different location. That's
Communicating the message of, hey, look over here.
Correct.
Which is, but still, I think that it is a right on the margin of what is sort of falls within the definition that we've established.
Yeah, and this is about the warning tone. This is not about message, right? The authorized use definitely is establishing communication to gain the rapport, whatever it may be, while the team's coming in through the back or something. But when you go up, it's described as a warning tool. Is that the warning tone is a tool for gaining an individual's attention to voice messages.
No, I see what you're saying. Then if we're reading it like that, then we take off the word distraction.
And so that's why I'm asking department's position here.
Just say ask that again, Jesse. Sorry, I apologize.
That's why I'm asking what the department's position is, because if the department's position is that it is to be used as a communication tool to gain someone's attention for the incoming voice message, then distraction is out. If you're asking if you use it as a distraction, then well, we got to retool some of these things.
No, I agree with you then. So it'd be used to gain attention to communicate with somebody and we take out distraction.
And then as to 4, tactical team operations, again, mainly used for communication, covered by 1 and 2 above. What
Yes,
you and David were talking about a little bit earlier.
correct.
All right, so I'm going to mark these 2 as for deletion.
That's a great catch. I see exactly what you're saying now.
And I mean, like, I just want to make sure if the department plans on using it as a distraction, yeah, sure. But like, as we're reading through it and sort of getting at these points, it's something to figure out. Yeah. I'm gonna strike these out, not by the. I'll strike these out and send you a copy of the track changes. Okay. And then I have a catch-all for you down here, which is other reasons consistent with section 3A4 above, authorized use and as determined by the incident commander. That should cover use of the warning tone and LRAD specifically. And those are the situations that were above.
Correct.
Just so that you know, I took out the 4 emergency situations clause up here because that it's the communication tool. I took out the safe portion because there are ways that it is not safe,
Very true.
even when deployed properly. And I moved the sort of description about prior to using the LRAD to tone lasting. Durations. Right, and this is I think your edits from our discussions after going through a lot of different things.
Correct.
And so I will again defer to Commissioner Jackson Castan and Commissioner Jordan about the warning tones. I still don't know what it sounds like, and I'm wondering what you all think about it being used. A couple of things we've been talking about: more than 5 seconds, and then repeated uses of the 2 to 5 seconds.
I didn't find it unbearable. I felt like it was really similar to sort of the warning tone or notification California Highway Patrol might use to notify someone and pull them over on the freeway. I didn't think that it was too much more obstructive than that. And I do apologies for the lieutenant's name that provided us the demonstration. But he did say that any of the continuous warning tones would have some potential neurological effect. So I think we've covered that and made sure that that is not authorized in its use. But 2 to 5 seconds seemed feasible for me without like any significant harm to an individual, unless they've already had some pre-existing conditions that might be impacted by that type of noise.
Right.
Yeah, agree. I think 2 to 5 seconds, and not within, with a sort of, 1 to 2 seconds buffer between, and maybe not for more than 1 minute total or something along those lines, or not for more than, 30 seconds total. That feels like ample to get anyone's attention. And within safe usage range, right? So now I think that was part of our conversation previously.
Ms. Tu.
I wanted to check in on what Commissioner Jackson Castang said, because my read of number 2, kind of in the middle of the screen right now, is that a continuous warning tone that is greater than 5 seconds is permissible. And I wanted to check in if that's how everyone else is reading this.
That's how I'm reading it.
Oh, that's how I'm reading it, as shall not be used to. No.
It's 2A there. Sounds like it requires approval of a commander.
Right, and section C for Charlie, says that it starts in the green but can move, and there's no, it doesn't say what that evaluation is. And so that means that this could lead to a situation where you're in the red zone at the highest volume and holding it continuously.
I have to say, even I think maybe Angela, David, I don't know if you can agree. I know we said we'd start in the green zone, but I don't even think you can hear it in the green zone.
I wrote in a section about that coming up.
Got it. Are we saying, and just for Angela and David, are we saying that we didn't want it continuous at all? Because if that's the case and we have a break in between, I'm fine still taking this out. And then just having.
Yeah, I was under the impression that continuous warning tones would not be used at all. I think that's what the lieutenant who provided us the tones said. He doesn't use those because of the potential neurological impacts.
Then I say we take it out.
Yeah, I would agree. I thought, I'm sorry. Thank you for bringing that up, Jennifer. I did think that that was part of the prohibited use, but
Yeah, no worries. This is why we do it as a big group.
yeah.
Okay. It coming from Lieutenant Johnson, I imagine no issue there, huh, DQ?
Absolutely. Yeah, we take it out.
Alright,
I'm
I'm gonna
fine.
do one big old delete, sorry. All right. Which does mean that we do have some work to do about figuring, oh crap. All right. So sausage is made sometime. Okay, which means we do have some work to do about how we, what the parameters we set for the short durations. Now I heard 30, I heard two concepts there. I heard maximum length of time and buffer. A little help on what those should be. Just two.
I'm afraid I don't have any help to offer, only more complications. One thing I'm wondering about is if the tactical team is using it for their purposes. When this happens in a residential setting, I'm thinking about the potential impact on any other residents in the building who aren't the person that the tactical team is interested in. I'm also thinking about any neighbors. I'm also thinking about the person who is of interest to the tactical team, right? Like, just because someone is getting a warrant served doesn't mean that they deserve to lose their hearing or suffer from any neurological conditions that could last the rest of their life, potentially.
Could I defer that to the deployment consideration section?
That sounds fine by me.
Just gonna make a note about it.
Right, and that said, I think we've already discussed the sort of continuous tone, without sort of, even at max volume, or sort of a sort of intermittent tone at max volume, I don't think is going to cause, unless somebody is very close, and presumably somebody who is barricaded within a building is not very close, unlikely to experience hearing loss and neurological damage. But I do think that in order to sort of plan ahead for that eventuality, I think that we do, sort of put in something around, again, how long the tone is used for, what the interval is, and how long sort of total it is used before is sort of.
Is he breaking up for anyone?
Sorry, are you having trouble hearing me?
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
I
Okay.
did see some lag there.
Oh, and just the last thought is like, how long is the sort of that tone and pause used before there's a stop and assessment? Pause, like a longer pause to assess its usage. That's my thought on that.
This too.
I feel like there's a lot of pretty solid research that's been done by very trustworthy organizations, and we should be deferring to people with described methodologies and a scientific approach towards what the impact of a LRAD is and its physiological effect on humans. Just to give one example, I spoke very briefly with John Lindsay Poland, and he expressed some confusion to me that he walked what he said was 10 paces which I'm going to just roughly translate in my head as 10 feet, and put his phone on the ground to measure the decibel level of the LRAD. And he was confused because it registered around, I think, 80 something decibels, and he was expecting a higher read. The reason for that, and the reason that that came out lower than what he expected, is because if you go back to that document with the diagrams that I was talking about last time, it talks about how the LRAD it's got a very narrow cone. It's not broad, it's very narrow. It's about 15 degrees, possible 15 degrees. I'm not entirely sure if it's 15 total or 15 or 30 total, but it's a very narrow cone. And what that means, if any of you can remember your trigonometry classes, that means that if you've got a narrow cone and it's at and the LRAD is not at a foot off of the ground, but it's at maybe 4 to 6 feet off of the ground or higher, then that means that that cone of sound is not going to come into contact with a point that's on the ground 10 feet away, because there's going to be a point at which, if you're very close to the LRAD, if you drop to the ground, you're not going to have the full impact as if you were directly in the path. And so I just want to I think it's very valuable for us to try and understand this equipment better. You can certainly see it in my questions about, say, the last section when we were talking about the MCC. I wanted to learn more about what it is that we're talking about. But at the same time, I don't think that a single in-person demonstration is a replacement for rigorous research from people who are experts in different fields than we might be experts in. And so I would strongly encourage us to consider the research work that other organizations have put out. I don't think there's anything that's actually peer reviewed, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a sufficient level of rigor and reputation in these organizations to be able to trust the measurements and trust the effects that they are calling for. So that was a very long way of saying, I think that we should really seriously consider looking at what research is out there and making policy decisions based off of research rather than only a single experience.
Thank you. I don't disagree with that. It does, however, mean that we have some homework to do as to these questions. And having being the person who brought it up, I might ask you to try to synthesize some of that research to see what the answers might be. I also see Commissioner Jordan's hand up.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think we should take into account any research done on the topic. And that said, we should also consider, firsthand experience of the actual device we're making policy around. And I don't know the veracity of any of the sort of research that's done. I don't know. What I do know is there are, and I am not arguing for sort of like free, like no oversight usage of the LRAD under any circumstances. At the same time, in doing some research on the internet and seeing what I can find informationally around the LRAD, there is a significant amount of hyperbole that exists out there around the LRAD. And some of that is just language. It's not sort of research based. Most of it is just language. It's just, how people choose to what category of tool they use. They decide to put it into. You often hear the term sonic weapon used when in relation to the LRAD. I mean, and if the LRAD is a sonic weapon, my neighbor sitting in his driveway listening to smooth jazz at 2 in the morning is also a sonic weapon, because that shit is just as loud. And so I'm not trying to be glib, but I'm also like, I hear you, and if you want to take up the cause of sort of parsing all of that, but also it is, if we're saying what is the utility of one in-person visit, I'm also saying what is the utility of data that has been, you know, potentially not as reviewed as thoroughly as we might like. We have to take both of them with a little bit of you know, a relativity, I suppose.
Okay. Since it's 7:53, I'm sorry to cut this short in this discussion. It certainly is a good discussion. But I think the straight up point is we need some answers about these things. So I'm going to send 2 groups off to do some homework. The first is Jennifer, to the extent that you can synthesize whatever it may be to give some answer. And really, we're looking for a definitive answer as to time and intervals or what it might be, or if that is even, or if repeated uses are even just completely not recommended by anybody. Something about repeated use of the warning tones. DQ, I would say manufacturer plus Lieutenant Johnson, because he seems to have a good sense of what exactly it is that have a sense of how it should not be used, right? From sounds like the demonstration that happened on Friday. I would also make note that the demonstration was based on the 100X, and we should be considering both the 100X and the 450X, which the department may use. Sorry to cut that short, but to sort of get at the issue, and I think that's really what I can think of to sort of drive this forward. Any other thoughts about information that may be helpful on this particular subject?
How quickly do we need to move on this?
Monday. Okay. I started this section on deployment considerations to sort of move it for maybe less that Lieutenant Johnson thinks about it, or whoever maybe use it. Of course, they're going to think about it, but also so the public has some idea as to what sorts of considerations that the department may have, including not using it when any person's in front of it within 50 feet. That may require some tweaking. I don't know, but that's sort of the start of it. And I also added a section, which is section C, that announcements and warning tone shall be made from the lowest volume setting necessary to complete the authorized use, leaving open the possibility, sorry, I'm correcting a typo, leaving open the possibility that it is not, that's not how you spell perimeter. I'll figure that out later. Leaving open the possibility that it may not start in the green zone because it sounds very low, but should at least think about what's the lowest setting needed for the use that's being used. And then I will draft a section about avoiding unintentional targets or bystanders in a community situation, or see if that's something that can be done. Any other thoughts or suggestions for this particular section? Yep.
Maybe adding a deployment consideration for whether people in the area are able to leave the vicinity, and also one about the increased danger of hearing loss or other injuries to younger people.
Someone tell me that kids are more susceptible to hearing damage.
They are, that's something that a lot of health organizations talk about. You often see it raised in the context of fireworks or music, and children's hospitals and similar asking parents to safeguard their children's hearing.
DQ?
Well, talking to the rep, he said you would just take the same precautionary measures that you would take with an adult.
I'm going to put down the presence of vulnerable people with hearing sensitivities. How about that? And then see if that covers it or not, or think about how we may need to change it. But that, I think, we'll start with the capture of the idea and move on from that.
Yeah, I think that maybe just, I mean, hearing sensitivities is definitely one consideration. One of the things that was discussed while we were there was things around mental health or PTSD. And so I think that also potentially falls under vulnerability or vulnerable populations, vulnerable folks in general. I don't know how you sort of suss out whether you have folks with, I guess if you are aware that you have folks who are dealing with those challenges, then that is a consideration, but I'm not sure how you identify them sort of externally, just a thought.
Well, something to consider or look out for. Don't use it at the VA hospital, perhaps.
I mean, a lot of our, homeless population are dealing with, PTSD and mental health challenges. A significant.
Yeah,
issue.
it's similar to the robots and the drones. I mean, we don't put that all in there, but we've had incidents where it's a 5150 who thinks aliens are coming after him, so we don't deploy a robot or a drone. It's something that we all take into consideration. Like, well, this doesn't really help the situation. It's still, negotiate, but not use. It's kind of like that one-liner that not just because it's allowed might not necessarily be the right tool to use.
Anything else for deployment considerations?
Are you putting this back online, Jesse, or just sending it out just so we can look at it? Sorry.
It remains on the shared drive. So
Perfect.
Whatever link you used to access it before, it should still be there.
All right, cool.
Okay, 8 o'clock. I will say that I did do some chopping up of the prohibited use section. Sorry, DQ. Kind of just took out things that were descriptive and really honed down on what the prohibited uses are. And actually, I understand where Commissioner Jackson Castaigne came from, because it does say prolonged use of warning tones is prohibited here. So glad we made that consistent. I'll make sure that stays the same. Any other thoughts on prohibited use after our demonstration? Sorry, I added a small line here, or to disperse a group of people after watching YouTube video.
Yeah, but I did think that it was, I think, don't we say that we're using it for a crowd control mechanism, whether it's to disperse or not? But I mean, it could be a communication to ask folks to disperse. And I think at least the typical deployment has been for like protests and things. And so I would say we might want to take that out.
Or the warning tone should not be used as to disperse. Something along those lines.
Yeah. Or prolonged warning tone.
Okay. I'll get those modifiers in. I don't want to hold people too far past 8 o'clock. Thank you all very much for your work and your thoughts and being subjected to the LRAD and other things so that you can tell us more about it. I'm sorry I missed it.
I mean, I was gonna say Commissioner Jackson Chastain got to drive the robot. I didn't get to drive a robot. I just stood in front of the LRAD. One of us had more fun than the other, that's for sure.
That would be true. It was a lot of fun.
Good night.
I was talking. Good night. Yep.
Thanks,
Good night.
everyone.
Thank you
Good
so
night.
much. We'll see you
Thank
next
you.
Monday.
Right.
I put some
Thank you.
definitions of disaster and management. I'm sorry,
I-
disaster and emergencies in the chat as well. Just so you-
I got them in. Thank
Got
you
it.
so much for that.
Thanks.